Good morning, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. It is 11:11, and we are here with the Buddhist Biohacker, another episode of 11:11D, Physics of the New Reality. We do this every Friday at 11:11 with special guests, and I am beyond excited about today. I have like so much energy running through my body. I knew this was going to be good. Schumann resonance spiked like crazy last night. It went up to 66. I think it's at 66 right now, which 66, that's a little master number for us. But we have all been getting massive downloads, and I'm super honored to have my guests here, which we have our Brady Bunch screen for everybody to see, but we have Becky Prater, we have Megan Riley, we have Janet Rose. It's like a powerhouse of women today. So welcome, ladies. I'm so excited to have you guys. Oh my gosh, I'm so ready.
Hey.
Yay. Everybody who's joining live, man, I see you guys popping in. We got some people popping in. Welcome to the show. Welcome, welcome. If you're watching live, to the right is your live chat box. Trust me, you're going to want to ask questions. You're going to want to write comments today. We want to hear from you. If you're listening later on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, or Google Play, because we're on all four now, which is super awesome. If you're listening on there, you can join us on our MeWe forum, mewe.com. Buddhist Biohacker Forum. So enough of all that stuff. So I really felt called to get the four of us together. I just felt like I wanted this group together. I wanted to pull you guys together. I wanted to have this conversation, but I wasn't quite sure what conversation we were going to have. And so this morning I sat down and I pulled in the collective and I said, what are we doing today? And I pulled in this transmission. I'm going to read it right now. This is a transmission from the collective about who we are and what we're doing here. It's just, oh my gosh. So I'm putting my glasses on. Okay. Dear ones, it is this point in the timelines that these four feminine energies are brought together with purpose of communication. The combined energies of these women, or the alchemy of your luminous light bodies as a better descriptor, is to bring forth the energy of innocence within the realms of fairies, gnomes, wizards, mermaids, and all beings of the elemental realms. This is a time for play. Sharing your understanding of the veil dismantled and discussing the truths of what you have always seen and heard in your own life experience is the purpose and mission of your discussion. The conversation gives birth to an activation of the seventh ray and a shift in the consciousness of the viewer. And so it is, and so it shall be. So,
wow.
I have a lot of information on the seventh ray too. I mean, right? Yeah. So I want to talk about the seventh ray, but I want to talk about this first. So first, like, take that in.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? I love it. I just love it because it wasn't at all what I expected, but I love it.
You know, the innocence, the time for play. You know, I've been talking about this all week about my anniversary of my calling and all of this stuff. So an opportunity came up to go to our cabin, which is up near Rollinsville on the Peak to Peak Highway in Colorado. And I've been up there, you know, so many times. You know, I grew up there. And it's so funny because one of the biggest transitions that I've been making is from the wounded healer into the queen. In terms of archetypes. And it's so funny because up at the cabin, I used to have this formation of rocks that I used to call my castle. Like, my parents know about this. I used to set up all of my stuffed animals. I would ask them for tribute, which, you know, were these pink quartz crystals that I would collect from throughout the property because it's just very naturally occurring there. Quartz is just like overly abundant up there. And so I found this little collection that had been covered up by pine needles and everything else. So uncovering that was uncovering the play and uncovering all of these things. And so I had set up all of my items that I wanted to bless in front of the graves of the dogs that we had back then. Because when we went to Medjugorje, we put a picture of the dogs up on the cross where Mary had been appearing. So that was up there when I had my vision, because that was the same cross where I had my vision. And, then rediscovering parts of the property that now feel much more resonant with me. So after we're done here today, Ted and I are actually going to drive up there so that he can see this new space of mine. It's not the same castle that I had before, but it's a different set of rock formations that I can sit on and have a wonderful vantage point. And so I really felt like the queen up there. And I went back to that childhood part of me that kept imagining this world. And it, the big message I kept getting is, you've been training for this your whole life. Like, why is this such a hard transition for you? You started here and you were separated from this in order to find your way back, because it's the folks who have found their way back who are going to lead everyone through this transition. So that, that's immediately what sparked for me when you mentioned that.
Oh, I love it. Megan, Becky.
This is so good. Okay. So I just left Rollinsville after on and off about 12 years.
Wow.
And,
you were a neighbor and I didn't even know it.
Yeah, I used to have a coffee shop, and the hike that I would do with my dog every single morning was the second turnoff, going north out of Rollinsville.
Uh-huh.
And that place very much was my stepping into the wounded healer archetype. And stepping into the wounded healer was really empowering at the time. It was very much about finding space in that and being able to communicate from the place of trauma and being able to communicate as being trauma informed. Here's the interesting. So I've been having conversations all week long with women, and we have themes, right? In our conversation, in our readings, I've been having conversations all week long, and not every person that I've spoken to, but here's the common theme. You are slumming it with men. That was the message. And there's only so many times I can say it out loud without actually having to, turn the number towards myself. And all these fingers pointing out without like, wait a second. Okay. So then last night in a conversation, I realized there was a missing piece. And the missing piece was something that I had let go as a part of my identity that really did serve me many, many, many years ago. And it was a way that I had trained myself and trained my brain and trained things, which is not at all about the wounded healer. It's about nobility, and it's about intensity, and it's about really not leaking energy, but building energy and intensifying the energy. And sovereignty, I think, is overused right now, but I still enjoy the word, and I'm kind of like rolling back into nobility as well. I think you're absolutely right. The time of the wounded healer has passed. That's also speaking about the heroine's journey. The heroine's journey is done. That's lack. That's all out of lack. And coming back with the elixir and sharing the elixir that no one has, we all have the elixir. So stepping into that, the strength of no longer diminishing oneself in order to feel comfortable around other people. The strength in my integrity. I know when I go off, and my sense of integrity is higher than most people, and I still find a way. Interesting, my picture Mary Magdalene just flew. I know when it goes, like I know, and I still find ways to be complicit with other people's integrity or lack thereof.
Yeah.
So what happens then when I really step into that place is, one, the feeling is loneliness, and that, or up until now has been, that would be lonely, but here we are. Here the four of us are connecting, and your Mary is Mother Mary, my Mary is Mother Magdalene, Mary Magdalene, and her tenderness, her passion, her devotion, and everything that opens up in that, and especially devotion right now.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I love what you guys said, because when you said the thing about building and intensifying energy, I'm thinking elementals. I'm thinking, is a dragon an elemental, or is that just a whole different thing? Okay. So I'm not sure, but so I know that I am like, I don't know what we're called dragon riders, but that's only partially true because I'm actually mostly the dragon. So I feel myself in dragon space, and I like feel myself flying in meditation. And the other day I had this meditation, and I was a dragon and my eyes were closed as this dragon. My eyes are closed in meditation. So I'm the dragon in meditation and my eyes are closed. And I'm saying to my people, why are my eyes closed? If I'm a dragon, why would my eyes be closed? So I'm flying, my eyes are closed. I'm like, this is ridiculous. Show me something. They said, no. You need to feel what it feels like to be the dragon.
Wow.
And so I was like, okay. So I just sat there. And then I don't know, Lisa knows this, that I keep getting like, I don't even know, compromise. I keep getting like dark energies in me, wrapping around my intestines and making me sick. And then like, just every month I go in and have these extractions and they're so real to me. I know exactly that something's happened. And so I've been working with my healing team, Deanna Kalali and Jenny Prince. They're like acupuncturist Reiki team in Denver, and they work with me every month to do this. And I'm like, you guys have to help me get rid of these things, like these entities that come in my body, because I can't seem to figure out how to keep them from coming in or how to get rid of them. And so they said, like, try being the dragon, be as big and build up that inside energy as intensely as possible inside. And then, like you said about the devotion and the love, like that love, bring in that element of unconditional love. And that is our greatest power of all. And so I'm trying to do that because I did a Reiki session on Gina the other day. And you guys, I was all this, like, I'd never had this happen before. There was like energy that came out, and I've never had it. I've never experienced in Reiki. I've never experienced any like malevolent energy on anybody. And so I'm like, oh, there's a little tension here in her hip. Let me just release this like pressure valve. Sure enough, this like giant thing flies out. It's a giant thing. And it, since I didn't realize what was going to happen, I didn't do, create a portal or any of those things you're supposed to do as a Reiki professional. I was just like, oh my God, what do I do now? And so I swear, like the last couple of days, I've been just like trying to be the dragon. I've tried to be the dragon, to be as full as I possibly can inside myself. And it feels so good. And then, when you were talking about having people like understanding that the importance of stepping in without being small. So I've got this amazing friend that's staying with me, and she's one of the best artists I've ever met. She's like, let spirit flow through her. She's amazing, amazing, amazing. But she admittedly talks about being small and feeling small. And well, who am I to, the Marianne Williamson thing, who am I to? Well, who are you not to? And it is about that. It's about letting go of this story and just stepping into it and delivering the best you can every day and holding that power and mixing it with love.
I love it. I love it. So what do we think about the veil being dismantled? Because here's the thing, the collective gave information, I don't know, it was like April or May, that was like, the veil's gone. It's dismantled. All you have to do is ask, things are going to appear. And I think we're seeing that across the board, because I know in our community on Buddhist Biohacker, I'm sure with each of you guys, with your clients, like you're seeing, like they're just having experiences, right? Like they're just having experiences. They're seeing things, they're feeling things. We know that there's other beings around. It's very accessible. And so I would just love your thoughts from the three of you about the veil. It's done. That time is done. And what are your thoughts on that?
My first thought about that is that the veil is illusion. It's the illusion that we have created to separate us from them. And, it's embedded in our religions, it's embedded in our governments, it's embedded in our relationships with each other, this idea of separateness and this idea of I'm out here on my own. And that's where I think so much of our anxiety and our trauma comes from, is this idea that we are separate from one another when we are not. And so it's that illusion of separateness that is really starting to fall. And when you have a global pandemic happening, you have a global traumatic event happening, across the globe. And this is an experience that everyone alive right now can relate to, regardless of how their government did things, regardless of how their family did things, how their neighborhoods or whatever have done. all of us have experienced this on some level in a very similar way. And so the illusion of separation, we can't say that we're separate anymore because of the fact that all of us have lived through this one event. And this is not the only event that we've lived through, but this is the first one that all of us are sharing together with literally everyone around the world. You know, we're talking to people in Australia, and we're talking to people in Serbia. And, you know, I have a friend in South Africa who is experiencing so much of this in her own culture and her own way of life. And then you add in these other kind of presence. And so it's the dropping of the illusion of separation for us. And, you know, one of the messages I keep getting is all portals are open to you now. We reserve the right to warn you off of one if it's going to distract you. You know, there's certain portals that aren't mine. They just aren't mine to deal with. That's someone else's. That could be Becky's job or Megan's job or Lisa's job or yours, whoever's watching. But we have, you know, we, at this point, we are devoid of the distractions that have helped us reinforce that illusion of separation. Those distractions have fallen away. We can't just go to the movies and forget about it. You know, we are living it very devotedly every single day. And at some point, the distractions will kind of sneak back in. But I think a lot of us are getting to a point, like, it's so funny. Everyone keeps saying, you know, why all the fireworks? And like the fireworks have seemed really intense around my house, and they always have been. But it's because we got so used to quiet. You know, there was no traffic at night. And so we weren't hearing the sirens all through the night like we normally do. We became so numb to what was going on around us that now that we've had the absence of it, it now suddenly is disruptive. And like, what is going on in my space right now? All of us are now becoming aware of it.
Absolutely. I was driving yesterday, and traffic has always been a thing. But yesterday it bothered me so much. And I could feel the cortisol like building. And I have all these tools, and what am I doing? And I'm clenching the wheel. Yes, I so agree. I think so too. The veil is gone, as karma is complete as well. Karma has been completed. We don't have anything to go back for. We don't have anything to complete. It takes me a certain amount of breath work that I can do on my morning hike. But as I do that, they all become clear. So the different elementals, and there's very different elementals in Rollinsville to what's happening down here in Crestone. Very, very different. Super fun.
Yeah.
And fun to just play and have them around the house and protect the house and have them play with the animals. And all of that is it's playful. I love that the comment about, let's see, so the veil of separation, it's been designed. I think it was designed in the narcissist dynamic. So most corporations are based on the narcissist dynamic. We've been supporting the corporations.
In law, there's the piercing the corporate veil.
Yes.
Concept in law that, you know, I had to spend years studying. So there is some very valid, rational truth to that.
Very much so. And the best and easiest and fastest way to recover from a narcissist dynamic is play, is creativity, is sexual energy, sensual energy, feeling the sensation of the air on our skin, feeling the sensation of what it is to eat, feeling the sensation of what it is to move the body and move the emotions and clear things out. All of that is happening. And we're not going to do it in a significant way. We're going to do it playfully.
I love that.
Me too. Go ahead, Becky.
Well, I was, you know, when you keep talking about the play, I think it's so important. You see people like holding up in their house, and you know, maybe some people's play is reading, but that's still kind of consuming other people's information. I don't know. But getting out and playing, and I've been doing a lot of paddleboarding the past couple of weeks, and it feels so good to do that. I mean, the minute your feet go into water, you align with the energy or the vibration of the water. And it's just so like, even if it's lake water, you know, this girl again, that's staying at my house, you know, she's used to this Gulf Shores beach water that's so beautiful. And, you know, she's stepping in this water that's like got floating algae and stuff. And it's totally grossing around. I'm like, no, and stick your feet in this muddy bottom. And it's like a facial for your feet. It's so good. I think it is really important for us. It's really important. Like think about even that all the energy, like when we're playing and your like body is just vibrating with the energy of love and playfulness and happiness and joy. I mean, that's what we're emitting. And we need more of us to emit more of that all the time. You know, even if you're, I don't know, it seems like it just needs to happen. Like we all need to have so much more of that. Hey, I loved what you said, Janet, about the idea of we don't have movies to distract us. I didn't even think about that. In fact, I was thinking about how hard this must be for the movie industry because I've got some friends that are in that business. But wow, is that the truth? It is no longer available to like hide ourselves in. I appreciate you doing that because this is important. Oh my gosh, we're all right here going, what do we do next?
I know. And, you know, I agree. Like, I think for me, the coolest thing is, you know, and I think for all four of us, you know, your team is always there, you know, the beings and the interdimensional beings and everything, they're always there. But it's like so accessible. It's like, I've been channeling since 2005, like full on trance channeling. And it's like, hey, my buddies are just chilling with me. Like, we're just going to have a chat. There's no like, okay, I have to like meditate and I have to do this and I have to like come into this space and I have to, you know, oh, I can't eat for 3 hours. You know, I got to, right? Like we've all done that. We've all done all of those things. And now it's like, hey man, I'm just going to talk to my Pleiadian brother. How are you, man? Like it's totally different vibration than it was. It's like, they're just here with us. They're just here and they love us. And the play is so important. And I have like two fun stories that came to mind when you guys were talking. One is dear friend, my dear friend. She lives in Boulder. She is a fairy whisperer. Like she just is. And one of my favorite stories that I absolutely love sharing is that she has this beautiful garden. I'm just not a green thumb. It's something I have to work on because it's part of sustainability for the future. But she's like this, I mean, just big, beautiful gardens, huge vegetables, just gorgeous. And she got this like little like disease on her plants. Like there was this little disease and she told me this story and it just makes me smile. She went and bought these very sparkly, rainbow, gaudy earrings. I mean, just crazy sparkly earrings. And she took them out and she gave them, she said, I'm going to give these to the fairies and ask them, I'm going to say, I'm going to give you these sparkly earrings. They're so amazing. And I want you to get rid of this disease. And sure enough, 2 weeks later, no disease, no earrings, gone.
Oh.
And it's like the best story because it's this reminder of like, we have help. We have help if we ask for it, we honor it, we trust it, we believe in it. And I hope that like everyone feels that like they're there for us, whether it's an interdimensional being from another planet, whether it's masters from the causal plane, whether it's a little fairy in the garden, like they're all here to help us right now. And the message I keep getting from the collective is we're all here. We're holding you. There's thousands of interdimensional beings surrounding the grid around the planet Earth, but we have to do it. We have to do that work and they cannot help us unless we ask for help. And so it's just remembering like it's our work to do. It's our planet. We chose to come here. We said, I want to be here for this wild, crazy time. And then the other story, and we also have some comments, so I want to get to those too, but the other story that came up is just, I love Wookiefoot. I'm totally like I just love them. I just love that band. If you haven't listened to Wookiefoot, you need to listen. It is the most conscious, your heart center just blasts open when you listen to their music. And it's so great. And it's just really high energy. And last week, I just felt this like spike. I felt this energy download and I had Wookiefoot on and I just danced in my living room and I danced and I danced and I danced. And before I knew, I was like, maybe I should like calm down and go to bed. And it was like 1 a.m. I had been dancing for like 4 hours straight, like just moving with the energy. And so when you talk about play, like that's how we shake off like all the garbage that gets on us, you know, it's how we do it is the play and the fun and the dancing and the music. And Cheryl has a great comment too. So I'm going to throw this out to you ladies and we'll see what your thoughts are on it. But she said the story from the Bible of Saul to Paul where the scales fell from his eyes came to me. I think that this is what has happened and is happening for a lot of people. So I'm just curious what your thoughts are.
Wow.
Whoever wants to throw something out.
I need to sit with the salt Paul thing for just a little bit.
Yeah, I'm
so long since I've even like remember, like I rejected so much of what was in the Bible, in all my various transformations. But one of the things that has come to me a lot and has been a running theme for me, for Ted, for my kids even, has been this coming back to your childhood and coming back to that childhood sense of wonder, where we had that innocence, where we had that ability to dream impossible dreams. Where it wasn't about even being grounded in reality. It was, I want pink, cotton candy clouds and, all of that sort of stuff that really drives your imagination. And imagination is what drives innovation. And I think so many of us, especially because I think I truly have been channeling for years, but it's only in the last few months that I even started saying that word and using that word, because there's very much no, I'm not worthy. This is not, how do I really know? And it's that constant pushback of the rational mind that is constantly inhibiting that imagination. And imagination is where spirit speaks. It doesn't speak, it doesn't send you a letter and say, hi, my name is Spirit and I am here to tell you, because we wouldn't even believe that if it showed up, right? Like we would still question that, because we have been so conditioned to question everything, which is wonderful. It's actually a really valuable skill to have in this reality, but we question our own experiences so much. And I said this, I think earlier this week, that I was watching a video of someone who was going to the Tulsa rally last weekend, and he was talking about how his friend died of COVID and that friend's kid had COVID and everything else, but he didn't know what to believe. And there was a part of me like, can we just start with believe your friends? like let's validate each other's experiences and say, you know what happened to you is valid. I may not understand it, but it's your experience and that's your interpretation and that's what happened for you. And that can coexist with what happened for me. Mm-hmm. And, all of these things come together, and the more that we share it, and I have been saying this, now is the time to be telling your truth, is so important, because we are confirming for one another that we're not alone. That, yeah, Janet, all this stuff that you've been channeling, that's actually called channeling. You might want to start writing that down and sharing that with others instead of just keeping it for yourself as if like this is only for me. We are so used to keeping things so small and so private and so individual. And yeah, there's some stuff that I'm not sharing with the full world, but I might be sharing it with Lisa, or I might be sharing it with my friend, out in California or Pennsylvania or whatever. I have to share that with somebody, because someone else needs to bear witness to what is happening for me, because then that gives them courage to bear witness for themselves.
Mm. I love that. Hey, something you said made me think about this, the idea of your body doesn't know the difference. So, when I was doing that, all these experiences I have been having lately seem to be really kind of woo-woo. I don't know, people call it that. They used to call us philosophers. Now they call us woo-woo. And and so like things have happened. And when I talk about my meditations, or I talk about what happened in ceremony, people are like, well, that's not even real. And all I want to say is my body doesn't know the difference.
Yeah.
Because it was my experience.
Because it's responding exactly the same way.
Yes. And so that's pretty cool when that's my truth. And what I figure is most people that might look at me and think I'm weird or whatever, or I don't know if I should believe that or whatever they might think. It doesn't matter, but for me, whether they believe it or not, but it seems to me a little like rose thorn gets in there and sticks in there as maybe there's something possible about this, because Becky's a pretty legit person. So maybe I need to just open my mind to the possibility that it's real. And then when you said something about kids and how you're playing, and, you know, kids don't have an expectation because they don't have experience to have an expectation based on. And so, you know, they look at things as unfolding with no expectation, as we should be doing now. I think that's so important, is like, just we'll look at it and see what's going to happen. Ask for the greatest, or you saying, Lisa, one time, let's ask for the greatest possible timeline right now for us right now. I don't know. What was the phrasing of that you had? It was so
that was exactly it. It was what we all are on timelines. So what's the highest potential timeline for my soul?
Mm-hmm. And then watch it unfold. Step in and watch it unfold.
I love to, I did this a couple months ago, and I went back and found my notes of who is the 5D self, who is she? And then to write down all of her attributes and all of her qualities. And when I found my notes this week, every one of those things I had started to incorporate or incorporated. It was so amazing. And so I had this image of, like, I throw a rope out there onto the grid, and then I pull her in. And not work or anything, but it's like it gets stronger and it's building the energy and everything. Oh, so juicy.
What is the 5D self? Tell us about your aspects.
So she, when I looked out a few months ago, and this was like very beginning quarantine, and I did pretty well with it. I had a full-blown temper tantrum about not getting hugs and not dancing with my friends. It wasn't about people were sick. It wasn't anything like that. It was dancing and hugs. And as I got over that, she's very chill. Like I would call her the energy of unshakable. She didn't freak out about everything that was happening. She didn't freak out about the economy. She didn't freak out about changes in her business. She was just like, we got this. It's all good. She really pulled in the woo, or like earth-based energy. There was a weasel that was living around my house at the time. And so I spent a lot of time like talking to him, and he's the cutest thing ever. And she just like made her day be play. She had just given away most of her furniture. I had just given away most of my furniture. And so I had this 3-bedroom cabin in the mountains at 9,000 feet to dance for hours and hours and hours. And it was so fun. She, let's see, what else? Oh, she was just she's very matter of fact. There's no charge to her communication. She says what she wants to say. She's not worried about how it's going to be taken. She surrounds herself with people that she wants to be with. And she surrounds herself with people with whom she can acknowledge, with whom she can have straight conversations, with whom she can cancel at the last minute. And they're like, yeah, it's all good, whatever. People with whom eat similar to her and are not like, I don't know, eating corn chips in the middle of the night, like bullshit that we shouldn't be dealing with by now. And for some reason I still was. And so it was this playful, like, that would be really great out there, but we're in the middle of a fucking like, what's good? She seemed so far off, and all of a sudden now here she is. She's right here. Mm-hmm. And I do like the Saul to Paul in the transformation story, because if we look at sin is just turning away from oneself. Sin is not adultery. Sin is not anything like that. And, as I really look at like what my devotion practice is, what works for me for devotion, if I don't do my practice in devotion, that is sin for me. Mm-hmm. And I am less. And before you know it, I'm going to be in a sugar relapse and like have my head in Ben & Jerry's. But I lost 100 pounds, and there's some caution about getting back there. There's some caution about it, but I know how I relate to myself, and my conversation, my self-respect is then in probably 2 weeks related to Ben & Jerry's. So sin for me in that transformation story, just like Mary Magdalene, just like the Christ, just like the resurrection story as well, it's just about embodying light. If we just embody the light, we are the light on the hill. We are that. We shine that. It's gonna make a difference no matter what we say to people.
Mm-hmm.
God, I love that. We have one comment here from Rachel. Hi, Rachel. I'm so glad you're watching. She said, great topic. She said, open sesame, exclamation point, which I love so much.
You know what? It would be good. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, it would be good for everybody to sit down and say, what does my 5D self look like?
Yep. Well, and I wrote down, I mean, Megan, brilliant. Fucking brilliant. And I wrote down, who is your 11D self?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say next. Yes, like who are you in like the other dimension of what we want?
Yes.
Like who stepping into the furthest possible imagination of your own self would be the 11D.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, what a project. Like everyone's homework that's listening, all of your homework, who is your 11D self? Brilliance of Megan, 5D self. Let's take it to 11D and that might be how we end things later today. So I want to share really quick. So we talked in this, well, we, they, the, us, that, I am, whatever you want to say, said in this transmission that we were activating the 7th ray. And I'm sure you guys can feel it. I'm sure you can feel the light codes opening up with the 4 of us. And I'm sure everyone watching can feel it too. And I'm like, loving this. Like, man, this is what we were born to do, is just open up the light codes. Like it's like unzipping and it's flying out of everywhere. But one of the things it said is we're activating the 7th ray of consciousness. So this is what I love about channeling is you get stuff and you're like, well, what the hell's that? Like, I don't even know, because you don't. There's so much information out there. Like you couldn't possibly have all of it. So I'm putting my glasses back on because I want to share this information. So I did some little research because I was like, well, what the heck is this? Oh my God. And it's great because it's what we're talking about. So the 7th ray of consciousness is the violet ray, which, you know, totally makes sense. Violet flame and Metatron and Melchizedek and every other thing that all of us love so much, 4 of us. So this is the ray of order and magic. Carrying the violet ray means creating, manifesting, cleaning, and making order of everything on the planet. The unrefined carrier of the 7th ray is learning empathy and tolerance for others. Once the energy is refined, the individual can go on to make a significant contribution to humanity. Activating the 7th ray, the violet ray, creates the philanthropist and the powerful transmuter of energy on the planet.
So this is a really, really big deal for me, in part because, you know, I have been pursuing my calling as this idea of, you know, as the hands of Mary, you know, using law and politics and policy and rationality and reasonableness and, you know, all of these things to create and repair these structures. And one of the biggest things that has been coming to me very recently is that the repair job is over. Like, you are not here to reinforce that structure anymore. You are there to learn what was wrong with that structure so that when we build new ones, it doesn't carry those same things with it. And
thank you for doing that, Janet. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And it's so interesting because, you know, in the last, I'd say, you know, I posted the other day that in 2012, I was like 3 days before my birthday. I admit I was suicidal. You know, there's so much going on in my life. Lisa remembers this time. It was the same year I passed the bar exam, which is awesome, but it was also, there was a lot of heaviness and a lot of really awful stuff that was bubbling up for me. And I had this very life transforming dream and involving a person that was just like, oh my God, that's such an impossible reality. And it was, I'm living in my space, I'm doing my thing, we're all connected. You know, my whole family is like living in this whole this connected kind of compound of my space flows into their space and their space flows into someone else's space. And, you know, all of it is cohesive. And I am now starting to realize all of that right now. But in that time from 2012 to now, I was on food stamps. I was on Medicaid. Everyone had lost their jobs at one point. You know, my kids were really in a tough spot with anxiety and things like that. And then we have everything that's going on in the world right now. And I was serving some of Colorado's most vulnerable people, folks who are experiencing disability and homelessness and have no money. I mean, very literally, they were surviving on $189 a month of benefits. And that was the work I've been doing for the last 5 years is that work. And it got to a point where it finally became so heavy and awful for me that I started becoming suicidal in that job again. And this was just like a year ago, like literally a year ago, you know, night and day difference to who I am and who you see on the screen right now. Because I was so wrapped up. I was working 70-hour weeks. It was heavy and it was awful. And one of the biggest messages that came out is that you had to go through that in order to be able to empathize with more people, so that we don't leave anyone behind. These are groups that are already being very marginalized. They have become invisible to so many people, and someone has got to be watching out for them and making sure that they don't get left behind in this whole transformation. But I'm not meant to live there. I am not meant to live in the lack. I'm not meant to live in all of that. I chose in 2017, when I could have left that work, to continue that work. And, you know, now I learned everything that's wrong with management, and I learned everything that's wrong with funding and how we fund, you know, these types of things. And so, you know, some very practical lessons that came out of that, but to the point where we are not going to construct the same thing again. We have to start really saying, I don't want this in my reality anymore. I don't want lack in my reality. I don't want lack for anybody in this reality. And yet one of the biggest things that I've learned in doing that work is that God bless him, one of my very first clients, when he got approved, you know, he got like a back pay of like $7,800. And he brought his first check to me and he said, "This is yours." And I'm like, "No, it's not mine. That's yours. That's your deposit on your new apartment." And in 3 months' time, he had reconciled with his entire family. He had invested in himself. He was going back to school, and he could not believe that he was worthy of that. He had been spending all of his life just believing that he's not worthy of abundance. He's not worthy of these things. And suddenly his life just transformed in so many different ways. And his first instinct was to pay me. And his first instinct was to share his wealth with somebody else. And that is the energy that we need. And that is the energy that we need to encourage. And he would not have been reached any other way but by that single incident of, "You mean this is valid? Like what I'm experiencing in my body is real?" Because that's what happens when someone gets denied for disability, for example, is that they fall into this trap of, they said that it's not real. And that's not what it's saying. It's just, we have specific rules and you don't meet the criteria for this rule. But the way that people receive it is so like, you're denying this reality that I have to live with every day. And that reality is still a beautiful gift. And it's a beautiful gift that they shared with me, and that they were honest and vulnerable with me, and they found safety. And that's what we want to bring into this new reality, is that, you know, I want no one to be without, but I want them to feel safe in asking for help. And I think that's where we get stuck in this, you know, I think all of us have been hearing this, you know, we're here for you. You just have to ring our bell, because we need your consent to help you. And every single person that I helped was not forced to come to me. I gave them the freedom to walk away if they needed to, if it wasn't a good fit for them. And that's what I trained my team to do, because ultimately it's about honoring that personal autonomy. The person who is in front of you knows their own experience, and they need to trust their own experience. And they need to trust that they are worthy of this gift that we are sharing with them. And ultimately, one of the biggest problems I've had is this idea of sacrifice, that everything about my calling required me to sacrifice, to stand up when no one else would, to, you know, put myself on the line, to, you know, be publicly humiliated if I needed to do this work. And that was the thing I couldn't let go of. I couldn't let go of this idea of sacrifice. And ultimately, the smackdown that I got on Wednesday when I was up in Rollinsville was, when you don't allow yourself to receive your own gifts, you are telling the people that you are serving that they're not worthy either. And so that was the smack in the face I kind of needed of, okay, you're right. You're absolutely right. And I needed to finally let go of that, because that has been so deeply programmed in each of us, this idea of, I need to sacrifice all of these things in order to get this thing. I need to follow these rules in order to get that thing. I need to, you know, it's always conditional. And what we are moving toward is this unconditional reality. I unconditionally accept and love you for who you are. And it may not be everything that I want for my life, but my God, it's working for yours. And I love that. And that's the energy that we are trying to generate. And I think that's what we most need right now, is to accept and understand that each person's path is valid. And that, you know, even if they're making what we deem bad choices right now, they're going to get there eventually. And it's not our job to take that away from them. That's their blessing that they get to work with. Sorry, I went all over like 12 different places, but.
That's awesome. There's an empath curse that we call, it's something like, I cannot stop suffering until every person on the planet has stopped as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it will keep us stuck. It will keep us in lack. It will keep us martyring ourselves. It will keep us in obligation, and it will keep us accepting in and also allowing vampires in our space. It will just, you know, continue. And that's the narcissist dynamic. So the play is the only access I see out of that. The play, the turning up the senses, turning up sensuality, turning up sexual energy, turning that up, because every dynamic in lack or narcissism, there is some kind of sexual control. Mm-hmm. And if it's shaming us for our bodies, or shaming us for how we use our sexuality, shaming us for how we speak about ourselves, shaming us for any of those things, that when we take the control back or the strength back in how it is that we want to express ourselves, then we can turn that up, and the play turns up naturally, and it becomes not about sex.
Mm-hmm. And we have been programmed, and you're just totally speaking my language. And we need to do a session just on sacred sexuality and all of that, because, you know, that is actually
noting.
Okay, good. Thank you. Because, you know, part of the reason why I don't actively work in politics anymore is I was outed as bisexual. I was outed as polyamorous. I was publicly shamed for who I was and literally my mission, which at that point, I was very sexually serving people in that point, allowing them to, you know, turning the mirror on someone and allowing them to see themselves as whole and complete and loved. Mm-hmm. You know, through that experience. It was a very deliberate thing that I was doing. I never talk about it publicly, you know, now because of that, because of all the shame that was launched onto me. Like, how dare you be this powerful woman? And I realize now that, you know, I was outed as part of a sexual harassment kind of thing, because I had turned someone down who did not resonate with that energy. And so they used that to punish me. And the amount that we have especially punished women, and especially punished sexuality with spirituality, I think is super significant, because, you know, my connections, my deepest connections are the ones where I can go into that sexual space with someone and I can be in that union with who they are. And we are experiencing ourselves together. We're experiencing each other together in this magical moment that it might only last a moment. It only might be a flash, but it's still something that you carry with you, and you carry the essence of, my God, I have seen you, and I have loved being in this moment with you. And even if it's the only moment you have with that person, it's still significant and it's important, and it can be life-changing and life-altering. And we don't talk about that enough. And it's funny, you know, Megan, I watched your session right before I went up to the mountains.
Awesome.
Yeah. And so I was carrying a lot of your messages about empaths and with me, because I knew that that was part of my problem, is that, you know, so many of my client stories were reflecting my own, and I was getting stuck in this house of mirrors. So often with all of that refracted energy coming at me all the time. And it just, you know, my heart was too big to handle it sometimes. And so when I went up there, like literally one of the first things was, don't be denying your sexuality. You got here because of your sexuality. Stop hiding it so much anymore. Stop hiding that sensuality. And, you know, I think for so long, it's been a means by which, especially for men, to control me and to contain me and to keep me caged in some ways. And it's so funny. There's a really wonderful book about Mother Mary called Untie the Strong Woman. And it's all these different images of Mary as like a fighter and, you know, this fierce abolitionist, and all of these things. But there's also the sensual. And that's something that we forget. And so I just keep seeing, you know, this red rose and this white rose in each hand. And I'm combining them to create this pink rose out into the world that is just that pure love, because it's the red rose of the sensuality and the white rose of leadership and coming together. And so I've been very drawn to those images, and I wanted to share specifically about that, because one of the other messages I keep getting is, you are my December rose. And it's Mary talking about the roses that Juan Diego brought to the bishop as proof. You are my proof that I am offering to the world that I am real. And you are carrying the miracle that someone is going to see when they receive you. Because when he dumps the roses out, that's when you see the image of Our Lady of Guadalupe on the tilma. And she was preserving and protecting the sacred shrine of Tonantzin, who, you know, was one of the Aztec goddesses. So she was preserving the divine feminine in this one act, and that we are the roses that are spilling out all over the world as proof that this is real.
Wow.
Oh yes, Megan, we're still going to talk.
So, let's see, the smell of the Divine Mother. So the rose is the smell of the Divine Mother, and that is, so that's rose. Also Tantra, when we look into Tantra, white is the spiritual part. So there are sects of Tantra that are only spirituality, where there is no intercourse, where there is no, it's only energy, and it's breath work and movement and things. And there's ways to sit in union that aren't actually in union. But there's ways to then experience life as union. And that's really when I talk about the tantric approach to life is the experiencing life as union. Red Tantra is all about sex. It's only sex. There's no spirituality. It's just sex. And then there's the Westerners have combined it into red and white, which is pink, and it's pink Tantra. So that's psychology, spirituality, sexuality. I'm really combining the two. And that's a lot of experience of union in life, but then union with a partner, of where our bodies disappear, our personalities disappear, everything disappears, and that is union. And that's a really, really, really beautiful thing. So yeah, we have to do Tantra, sacred sex.
Yes.
I'm pointing in
I have so much to say, but I got to let Becky talk. Go, Becky.
Yeah.
Okay. My only comment about this was, okay, Megan, you said something about about empaths suffering as long as all people suffer, or as long as there's anybody suffering, I too am suffering. So it kind of brings me to this idea of, you know, when you go to somebody and you have a story to tell, you need to get off something off your chest, and you're like, oh, this happened, and you know, you're talking about your own suffering. And what you really want is somebody to be their full self and witness, and not buy into it or throw fire on your flame of suffering. And so, you know, we really want somebody to just witness and hear, and maybe provide some input based on a, you know, different perspective, like a, I don't know, a not you perspective. But there are times when people will be like, yeah, I hate that too. And oh, she's awful, you know, that kind of stuff. And that doesn't make us feel better. That makes us feel worse. So it's almost like what we need to be as an example of maybe, I mean, what came to me, the word that came to me is non-suffering. So they can recognize and have our non-suffering reflect back to them, their ability to non-suffer. And so, you know, we all understand, you know, I think that, what was that song in Jesus Christ Superstar about where there will always be people that are poor. There will always be people that don't have. And, you know, what we can be is not necessarily join them in that space, but show them, you know, a good heart-based, spiritual-based, loving person that understands and witnesses and can help, but doesn't necessarily have to be in that same space of suffering. I'm not a big sufferer because I'm just not, because I don't think anybody wants me to be that. Like they come to me because of my maybe joy and light, not my ability to be in the suffering with them. Ooh, this is all uncomfortable for me to say. I don't even know if I'm, I don't know.
Be yourself.
Yeah, but I think this is what we need. Like suffering, yes. I mean, we all do it sometimes. We all do, we all have, but we need to be more in the space of non-suffering, even if we can be an example. You know, you see people that, you know, somebody's flitting around, you're in a pissed off mood and someone's all happy and you're just like, dang, I want some of that. But really too, inside it like unlocks your sort of ability to feel that too. Like you're sharing your joy, and even people that are miserable can feel even a little bit of, oh, there's some joy in me too, because I recognize that in that person. So I feel like we need to do a little bit more of that. But it's, you guys, I can say that I don't have a lot to contribute to a divine sexuality situation. I don't have a lot to say about that. I'm gonna listen to that program because I need to learn.
Oh my gosh, I have so much to say right now. I'm like, where do I even start? So okay, so first off, the suffering. You know, when you guys, Janet, I mean, all three of you guys have mentioned the suffering. And, you know, I wrote this note, like, why the suffering? And for me, my suffering was these MS symptoms that crushed my body, that took away my ability to move my body, to feel my body, and having to say, I cannot feel my body. Why? And when I asked those questions as I was healing and ultimately curing those issues, was I didn't want to feel. The empath's curse Megan mentioned. I didn't want to feel anymore. It's exhausting. So I numbed. I created numb body. Okay. So anytime those symptoms creep up, which honestly hasn't happened since the beginning of this year, and I don't think it'll happen again. But when they would creep up, I had to ask myself, what am I not allowing myself to feel? You know? And the other reason why, so that was one, but the other reason why, when I asked my team, like, why? Because if I didn't know what it was like to have that experience, I could not help the people that need help, because now I see it through their eyes. And I understand what it feels like to be there, but I also understand what it's like to heal it, to cure it, to free myself of it. And I know it's possible. And so I think when we talk about this violet ray and this seventh ray and this whole idea of having empathy and tolerance so that we can make a contribution to humanity, is the suffering comes so that we can, in fact, contribute, because we now see our own value. And I feel like you can't see your value unless you go through that tunnel of darkness and sit with that darkness and sit with yourself in the dark night of the shadow, which, welcome to the event of this year for the whole globe, is that sitting with yourself and saying, this is icky, and I have to look at it and I have to love it anyways. You know? And so that was my thought on suffering. And listen, I'm a Vajrayana tantric yogini, you guys, and I'll tell you what, I own that shit. And I go back to when I met you, Janet, like back 2005, 5 or whatever and leaving my marriage. And oh my God, hadn't had sex in 3 years in my marriage. I mean, so shut down. My womb wasn't activated. I hadn't had a cycle in 3 years, hadn't had sex in 3 years, it was all shut down.
Wow.
And I had to crank that thing open. And I remember it was as simple as I bought Chanel No. 5 red lipstick. And that was my start. And one day I'll write about that, but I'll tell you what, that was my start. I bought red lipstick, Chanel No. 5. I went and bought expensive lipstick. And I said, I am going to embrace my feminine self. I am not going to hide this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I hear so many women spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning about boys. And I'm going to tell you, I so did too. I spun and I spun and I spun, and oh my God, I was single for 8 years. God help me. But there came this point when and I think you guys, will get this. I came to this point where all of a sudden I owned my sexuality, and I was making a conscious choice to be sexual. It was not forced on me. It was not somebody else's decision. It was not, this unconscious behavior. It was this, and that is the Tantra. The Tantra is when you make a conscious choice to do or not do, to be with it or to not be with it, but it's your conscious choice. It is not put upon you. The whole movement of #MeToo, it challenges me. It challenges me because there are lots of unconscious choices being made on all sides of that program. And it is up to us as women in the rise of the divine feminine, which is now, it is up to us to own our decisions and to own if it wasn't conscious and to say, shit, man, I didn't like that. I'm hurt by it. I might be traumatized by it, but I also wasn't conscious in that choice. But you can be conscious in that choice. And when you become conscious in that choice, it heals all the trauma that happened to us in the past, because suddenly we own our womb space. We own our sexuality. We own who we are. Oh my God, it's totally whole other podcast, because it's so it just fires me up. Go ahead, Megan.
Well, yeah, this is it. And I just realized yesterday, for a while I thought, well, maybe my niche is like a sex coach, and maybe my niche is like Tantra coach, and that wasn't it. And it's like this conversation about, especially Becky, about being witnessed, because what's happening on the planet right now is Gaia is waking up after thousands and thousands and thousands of years, and there are things that have not been witnessed, and it is coming up for witness. And for us in lack, as we heal lack, when we believe that there's not enough and I'm not enough, when we heal lack, we heal all of that, and we heal being able to, or not being able to ask for what we need, not being able to ask for what we need as a human, in relationship, in sexuality, not being able to ask, and then having to find subversive ways to get our needs met. So, and that's where, like, on the astral, like, awful shit happens. This isn't just like molestation and 3 out of 4 women. It's not just that. It's what's happening out there on the plains, because so many of us grew up not knowing how to get our needs met. And so it all comes up for witness and release and witness and release and witness and release. I did a course it was like a month ago, and it was all really witness, like everything that had never been mentioned, everything that had never been seen, everything, all of those things. If only this hadn't happened, and if only this hadn't happened. And I was in therapy for years, and none of it in a weekend. It was just witness and release. Mm-hmm. And stepping out of wounded healer, wounded feminine, into then sovereign and noble. That's the kind of thing that's possible. And I think that's the thing that's possible for so many women, because we're thinking, if only this hadn't happened, or it's a piece of identity, it's a piece of us. And while we may complain about it, we may talk about it, we may, whatever those things are that haven't been seen, that haven't been witnessed, it's coming up for release now.
Well, and I'm sorry to jump in, but,
Yeah, go.
Rachel had the downloads. Rachel just asked, why did it take a pandemic? And Megan, you just, boom, it just hits, like the pandemic is Gaia declaring sovereignty. That is what this is. It just hit me. It's like Mother Earth, Lady Gaia said, I am a sovereign being. Fuck you guys, and threw this at us because it's time to wake up. Oh,
Yes.
Well, and I think, we talked about that when we did the interview with Clark and Perdita about Way of the Rose, because they talk about that quite a bit in Way of the Rose, is this arrogance that we can control the earth gave rise to this arrogance that we can control others, gave this rise to this subservience that we have fallen into with one another. This appalling arrogance that we have, that we can or should control every person, and how they express their sexuality, how they express their spirituality, how they express and experience. We are trying to control these experiences. And really, Megan, you so hit on it about the bear witness to this, because that's really what the shadow work truly is you're shining a light into that corner that you don't want to look at, that you've been avoiding, that is just like, okay, I've told my story about that. And you have this story in your head of what that thing is, and you're just like avoiding it. And when you shine a light into that corner, the brighter you become, the less you can avoid those shadow corners and the little monsters that you think are hiding in there. And one of the most transformative experiences for me in therapy was EMDR, and really calling in one of those shadows and healing him, and finding out that he had absorbed all of this sexual trauma for me as a child, that I was only just now starting to become aware of, and starting to remember and recall all these things. This spirit guide absorbed all of that. And then I turned him into the monster. I thought that was the monster, when in fact he was trying to protect me from having to absorb all of that myself. And God only knows I had enough of that later on in life. But when you were mentioning me too, I think one of the biggest things that we saw happening, I know this happened for me too, is, oh my God, what was I accepting before? Like I had been conditioned. In my very first job, I worked with 12 hockey players. So I was conditioned to view myself as only valuable as a sexual or attractive woman. And so anything that hurt that sexual attractiveness, that felt like that was the only thing I was wanted for, then I started getting really defensive about, or, it would cause me to spiral into this idea of low self-worth, because these people who I kind of felt like were in control were telling me, no, that's the only thing you're good for. And me too really started opening that up, and like, oh my God, how much of that was I accepting and normalizing on some level or another? And then we saw each other saying, wait a minute, you were normalizing that too. I was too. Oh my God, we should never have been doing that. And this is not going to happen again. We are not going to let young women into these situations and not feel empowered to set their boundaries and to say, this is my body and I get to decide what I'm going to do with it and how I'm going to express myself with it, and whether or not I'm going to express myself with you with it. And as Ted could talk about, with some of the work that he's done in the world, we know that trauma, that power and control, comes from a place of loss and lack for them too. And, I'm not saying that to make us feel sorry for the choices that they made, but those are choices that they made to impose and take that sovereignty from someone else. And you mentioned earlier about the wounded healer. And I realized that one of the things that I was doing as the wounded healer was not healing my own wounds. I was just putting all of their wounds on top of mine. Their wounds became my band-aids. Mm-hmm. And that's not fair to them. And it's not fair to me. And it's not fair to the loss that I experienced, that I have a responsibility of preserving for myself and healing for myself, because I'm the only one who can. I can choose to go to Lisa and ask her for help with this thing or with that thing. But ultimately, it's my job to apply it and to find the right way to apply it to heal myself, because ultimately we cannot move into this new reality until we have healed ourselves. And Becky, that's what I love about what you were talking about with your book and sort of the strategic self-planning, because I'm just like, oh yeah, that's totally like you're speaking my language too with that, because it is, we cannot even start this process without recognizing and healing ourselves on some level, and bearing, that bearing witness, someone helping us bear witness to what we are experiencing, so that frankly, we just have that extra energy and that extra validation to say, you know what, no, I'm going to do this. Because it's scary and it's awful, but the minute you start engaging with it, and the minute you start embracing what is in those shadow corners for ourselves, the easier it becomes for us to then apply that healing and be that model out in the world, because they can't do anything, because we have now experienced our true full self, and they cannot ever take that away from us. Sorry, I get really passionate about that.
I feel all of us are. Megan, Becky, thoughts?
I've started talking about this Me Too thing the other day too, and I just felt like, is that kind of an older story because we've got more pressing things right now? And I couldn't help but think, no, it's not. I mean, it's still super valid, mostly because what I see it happening. Okay, when you were talking too, there's something came up. It wasn't a fully formed idea, but it was the idea of, is there's something innate, an innate healing that's happening right now to everybody across the board, every person on the planet, because all things are coming up. I would thank Trump for a lot of this, because he's brought up all things that are divisive, all things that are examples of our shitty behavior as people. And,
that's his life.
It's his life. And, thank goodness, like, I know this is his job on this planet. I know when he's on the other side and I meet him, we're high-fiving because he's fucking it all up and changing everything. But what's happening is there's this global healing, because we're talking about it, we're witnessing it, we're seeing it, we're out there, we're saying, no. It's a global healing that's happening, because I keep thinking I see that as falling away, and us as being uniquely capable at this time for planning a new future based on every single person on this planet healing in some way during this period of time. And that feels really good to me. And when Me Too came about, I could have written I could write a list of inappropriate things that happened to me.
Yes.
Okay, look, can I just tell you one thing? One
time,
I went on a business trip with some people, like people I worked with. I'm not kidding you. They made me stay in the hotel room with them, and I had to sleep in a bed with one of the people. I'm not kidding. And it's not like I said no. I was like, I know you guys are trying to do this on a budget. WTF. Do you believe it? It wasn't. What?
Oh my gosh.
You guys, seriously, like, it brought all these things up, and I realized I have had so many inappropriate situations. I have. Like, I understand. And these people are probably just doing what they think is right too. It was blowing me away. I mean, it happens all the time. But the fact that we're talking about, the fact that we're sharing, which I don't think I've ever shared this with anybody in my life, because that's so embarrassing to me that I was caught in that situation. Oh, whatever. But I think the fact that it's out, it's witnessed, it's being witnessed, we're talking about it, we're saying, oh yeah. And when like I might tell that story, and I can't imagine that anybody else has experienced having to sleep in a hotel room with your boss. Oh my God. So, I mean, it wasn't sexual. It was just that they were trying to save money. Okay, I'm serious, like whatever. But still, this idea that, like I bring up that, and that makes somebody think, oh gosh, yeah, something like that happened to me. Something like happened to me. And you can't help it. It gets out. What's coming up is going. Mm-hmm. And so the more things that come up, the more things are going and leaving us, because we now know somebody saw it, somebody heard it. And that is what helps it release, I think, a big part of what helps it release. So, oh God, isn't that crazy? stranger than fiction, seriously.
But that's so true, is that loss of bodily autonomy on some level, and all the different ways in which we compromise that. And we are told to compromise that. I mean, I teach consent classes, especially in sexually marginalized communities that are supposed to be really great at consent. And they kind of mostly are, but the problem is that there's still people who are going to abuse that, who are there, and there's not enough support or help to witness the folks that have been, harmed by these sorts of compromises that we are constantly making. And so one of the things that we teach is, even with kids, like not forcing kids to hug someone, like, wave goodbye to grandma, like, or say goodbye to grandma instead of go give grandma a hug. Now, don't hurt her feelings, because the way that we pile on guilt and shame and, why aren't you going to be reasonable about this? We're just trying to save money. That rationalization. It's so funny. You were talking about your story and Ted's over here grimacing like, like he's remembering some of the stuff that he used to do in his groups about teaching how that's not okay. But there's not enough people who get that information. And so they just go based off of what the people around them are telling them and normalizing for them. And we don't trust our gut that says, no, there's something fishy and wrong about this. And, even if I'm like the high maintenance diva in this situation, I'm going to say no. And I have to set my boundary. And like, I won't ever share hotel rooms with people because I like my privacy. This is a really big thing for me. Like, I need to have my own space to do my thing. And most people don't resonate very well with that. So, that's something I've had to normalize for myself. And I go to all these geek conventions and everyone wants to share a room with me. And I'm like, no, you really don't. You really don't. And I'm just going to say no, and not feel guilty about it, because you have to respect that bodily autonomy. And, Megan, you mentioned earlier about being trauma informed. That is being trauma informed, is allowing people to set their boundaries, allowing people to say, no, my bodily autonomy is mine, and this is what I'm choosing to do with it. Because trauma occurs when we feel a loss of safety, security, or bodily autonomy, and a violation of those things is really, really, important for how these shadows start even forming for us in the first place. And it started forming before we even had a choice in the matter at all. And so in a lot of ways, we've been so conditioned to allow others to decide how we should use our bodies, how we should not use our bodies. We should all over everyone, and everyone shoulds all over us. And it sucks because no one else can tell me what my experience is. So I think that's just so valid for just, I think, everything that you guys are saying.
Can we just, so all of us have a little energy around this, right? And any kind of trigger is a massive output of energy. And we want to find ways, we usually want to find ways to release it, or make it go away, or numb it, or something. And what I think is that we find this and we build it, and then there's a pulse that goes out onto the planet for every woman who has had some kind of experience, every man who has had some kind of experience, right? It goes out to the 144,000 souls that we are all connected to. And if we could just, the four of us, stand in a circle and have the light of Me Too, have the light of consent, have that iridescent heart light and our toroidal field light build.
Mm-hmm.
And as it builds and amplifies, that it is reverberating out beyond us, that it's reverberating out, that the four of us, our hearts are connected, and our hearts are connected, and the heart, like, it's shooting out from the heart into the middle of the circle.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to every woman that ever thinks, I'll never get beyond this. Every woman and man that thinks, I had something happen and I can't talk about it. Every woman that doesn't know if she'll ever get beyond that, because we are four that have. We are four that it's not just about healing, it's about stepping into an entirely different world. And it sends out this pulse and pulse and pulse and pulse all over the planet.
We are the proof that it's possible.
Hell yes. Yes.
And I see that wave, and it would be even more powerful with physical presence together, in union this way. But even in this moment, we are hitting 4 different quadrants and 4 different forms of the goddess together, in this space, and each of us bringing our own experience and our own story about this, but also not giving into the overall narrative of it either.
Well, and listen, everybody who's listening. So I foresee a sacred sexuality roundtable coming our way. Maybe I wrote down Sacred Sexuality Summit, maybe needs to happen. But here's for everybody who's listening now or on the replay, a few things. One, these 3 women are excellent support systems for this work. So all of you who are listening, and I know you are, and I know that this resonates with you, you have 3 sources to tap into. I suppose 4, because you have me too, but there's resources to tap into for the coaching, the healing. I mean, Becky does incredible energy healing. Megan is an incredible coach. She's an incredibly gifted psychic. Holy cow. Janet is this trauma-informed coach, but she's so much more. So you have 3 women to call. I guess I need to keep including myself. I'm so bad with that, but you can call me too. You can. My focus right now, I mean, I'm a psychic for sure, but like my focus right now is the soul retrieval work, because we've got to get our past done so that we can be here, because this is it. But you have these women to call to get support to do this work, because I'm sorry, all of you need this work. We all need this work. We all still need this work. But like, when you feel like you've got to get online to one of those little online psychic chats to ask about a boy, it's time to call Becky, Megan, and Janet. It's time to give them a call, because you're spinning. And there's a reason you're spinning, and it goes back to your self-worth and your value and all of those things. I mean, it really, really does. And the other thing I want to say is get on this Buddhist Biohacker forum on MeWe, because MeWe's safe. MeWe's clean energetically. MeWe has a privacy bill of rights for everyone who's on there. But the thing about the forum and what I want to create is exactly this. Like, this is the point, because all of us are dealing with something as serious as sacred sexuality. We're all working through it, and we can do this in community. Virtual community is what we have right now. That is the reality of what the planet Mercury is asking us to do this year, is to up level our technology skills to be able to connect communities of light from all around the world. We all are connecting for a reason, and use these resources and tools. It's not just, because, we want to comment on a YouTube video. It's because I literally want you guys to talk to us, and I want us to talk to you, and let's get us talking. Like, don't be afraid to share. Just like Becky, you said, like you never said that before. And I think I haven't channeled publicly since 2006. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, go tell everybody you talked to all these beings. And it's like, I didn't even think twice about it. And Janet, you mentioned it too, but it's like, it's time for us to talk. Like throat chakra, the high heart, the seat of the soul is activated. That turquoise light is activated, and it can't get up here unless this is open. You have to communicate through that throat chakra. This is the time of the indigo. Hello, throat chakra, third eye. We have to blast this energy out. I totally just spit while I was talking.
I get so excited, and this is so much fun. I gotta go.
I know. I love you so much. We all have to go because it's 12:30 our time. But thank you guys, all three of you, for being on here. And this is good. I hope you guys are all going to come back so we can keep doing this.
Oh yes. Thank you so much. Wonderful.
Bye. Bye. Love you guys. Bye. Mwah.